I never thought love could be a weapon until the day Carter killed me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, or rather, from the second beginning, because fate gave me something I never expected. Another chance. My name is Maverick Elliott, and this is the story of how I died, came back, and learned that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well. The first time I lived this life, I was 23 years old when I met Carter Hayes at a military charity gala. I remember the exact moment our eyes met across the crowded ballroom. He was in his dress uniform, all sharp lines and confident posture, with dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead and eyes that seemed to see straight through me. I was there representing my family's foundation, uncomfortable in my tailored suit, trying to make small talk with donors twice my age. Carter approached me with a champagne flute in hand and a smile that made my heart stutter. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," he said, his voice warm and teasing. I laughed, caught off guard by his directness. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who feels the same way." He extended his hand. "Carter Hayes, Lieutenant, currently counting down the minutes until I can escape." I shook his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm, the strength in his grip. "Maverick Elliott. And I'm already planning my exit strategy. Maybe we could strategize together?" That was how it started, with a conversation that stretched from minutes into hours, with laughter that came easily, with a connection that felt like coming home. Carter was charming, attentive, interested in everything I said. He asked about my work with the foundation, my passion for literature, my dreams for the future. He made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced before. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. It was nothing elaborate, just the two of us on a quiet beach at sunset, his hands trembling slightly as he opened the small velvet box. "Maverick, I know I don't have much to offer. I'm just a low-ranking officer with a modest salary and uncertain prospects. But I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my life. Will you marry me?" I said yes without hesitation. What did money matter when we had love? My friends warned me, gently suggesting that perhaps we should wait, that we came from different worlds. My parents had passed away 2 years prior, leaving me a substantial inheritance that I'd barely touched, preferring to live simply and focus on meaningful work. "Love is enough," I told anyone who questioned us. "As long as we have each other, we can make it through anything." I believed that with my whole heart. We married in a small ceremony with close friends and Carter's family. His mother, a sharp-featured woman named Gloria who looked at me with calculating eyes that should have been my first warning. But I was too in love to notice, too wrapped up in the romance of it all. The first year of marriage was blissful. Carter was attentive, affectionate, always finding small ways to show his love. We lived in a modest apartment, both of us working, him at the base, me managing charitable projects. We cooked dinner together, spent weekends exploring the city, made love with a passion that left me breathless. Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way Carter would casually ask about my inheritance, framing it as simple curiosity. The way his mother began visiting more frequently, always mentioning how difficult it must be for Carter to advance in his career without the right connections or resources. The subtle comments about opportunities that were just out of reach. 2 years into our marriage, Carter came home one evening with an unusual tension in his shoulders. We'd just finished dinner, I'd made his favorite pasta dish, when he took my hand across the table. "Mav, I need to talk to you about something important." My heart skipped. The seriousness in his voice was unfamiliar. "What is it? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, baby. It's just, I've been thinking a lot about our future." He squeezed my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "I don't want to be in the military forever. The pay is terrible, the advancement opportunities are limited, and I want to be able to give you the life you deserve." "Carter, I don't need." I know. He smiled, that beautiful smile that had first captured me. "You've never cared about money. That's one of the reasons I love you. But I care. I want to build something for us, something that's ours. I've been researching business opportunities and I think I've found the perfect venture. Import-export specialty goods. The profit margins are incredible, and I've already done preliminary research. This could set us up for life." I felt a flutter of unease but pushed it aside. "That sounds exciting. What do you need from me?" His eyes flickered to the table before meeting mine again. "Startup capital. I've run the numbers 100 times and I know I can make this work. But I need funds to get started, licenses, inventory, office space, staff. I've looked into loans, but the interest rates are predatory, and they'd eat into our profits significantly." My mouth went dry. "How much are we talking about?" $300,000 to start. "I know it's a lot, but Mav, I swear to you, once the business is established and profitable, I'll pay you back every cent. And then I'll spend the rest of my life spoiling you the way you deserve. Taking you on trips around the world, buying you anything your heart desires, giving you security and comfort. Carter, that's nearly half of my inheritance. I know, baby. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't absolutely certain this would work. And it's not just for me, it's for us. For our future. For the family we might want someday. That's when Gloria started calling more frequently. She dropped by unannounced, always with some comment about how proud she was of Carter for taking initiative, how smart he was to pursue business instead of staying in a dead-end military career. She'd look at me with thin-lipped smiles and make pointed observations about how supportive partners help each other achieve their dreams. The pressure was subtle but constant. Carter never outright demanded the money, but the conversation kept circling back to it. His touches became a little less warm when I hesitated. Gloria's visits became more frequent, more pointed. I began to feel like I was failing as a partner, like my reluctance was selfish. If you really loved him, you'd support his ambitions, Gloria said one afternoon while Carter was at work. She sat in our living room drinking tea I'd made, looking at me with those calculating eyes. He's sacrificed so much for you, Maverick. He could have married someone from a better family, someone with connections that could help his career. But he chose love. He chose you. Her words burrowed under my skin like thorns. 3 months of gentle pressure, loving persuasion, and growing guilt finally wore me down. I scheduled a meeting with my financial advisor, withdrew $300,000 from my inheritance, and handed it to Carter. The joy on his face seemed genuine. He pulled me into his arms, kissing me deeply, whispering promises against my lips. I love you so much, he murmured. I'm going to make you so proud. I'm going to build an empire for us. I believed him. The first few months after I gave Carter the money, everything seemed fine. He quit the military, filed the paperwork for his business, and threw himself into work with an intensity I'd never seen before. He was home less, but when he was there, he was still affectionate, still made time for me. The business, Hayes Import Solutions, officially launched 6 months after I'd given him the money. Carter rented a small office downtown, hired a few employees, and began making deals. He came home excited about shipments and contracts, kissing me hello and goodbye with genuine warmth. I wanted to be involved, to understand what he was building with my money, but Carter always brushed off my questions with a smile and a kiss. Don't worry your pretty head about the boring details, baby. Just trust me. Everything's going according to plan. The first year the business broke even. The second year it started turning a profit. By the third year Hayes Import Solutions was thriving. Carter bought himself a new car. A sleek black Mercedes that cost more than most people made in a year. He moved his mother into a luxury condo across town. He started wearing expensive watches and tailored suits. But the promises to pay me back never materialized. When I brought it up, gently at first, Carter would kiss my forehead and tell me to be patient. The money's all reinvested right now, Mav. We're in a growth phase. Once things stabilize, I'll start paying you back. I promise. The affection began to change. His kisses became perfunctory. He stayed at the office later and later. When he was home, he was distracted, always on his phone, always busy with something that didn't involve me. Gloria's visits increased again, but now she looked at me differently, with something that looked almost like pity mixed with contempt. I tried to be understanding. Building a business was stressful, demanding. I threw myself into my own work with the foundation, trying not to notice how my husband was slipping away from me. Then came the day that changed everything, or ended everything depending on how you looked at it. It was a Thursday evening in late September. I remember because the leaves were just starting to turn, painting the world in shades of amber and gold. I'd made dinner, Carter's favorite pot roast, hoping we could have a quiet evening together. He'd been distant for weeks, barely speaking to me beyond one-word answers, coming home long after I'd gone to bed. I heard his car pull into the driveway around 7. The door opened and I turned with a smile, ready to greet him. Carter walked in, but he wasn't alone. Gloria was with him, her expression cold and hard. We need to talk, Carter said without preamble. No hello, no kiss, nothing. Something cold settled in my stomach. Okay, let me just turn off the stove. Now, Maverick. I'd never heard that tone from him before. Sure. Almost cruel. I turned off the burner and followed them into the living room, my heart beginning to race. Carter didn't sit. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, while Gloria perched on the edge of the sofa like a bird of prey. I want a divorce, Carter said, still not looking at me. The world tilted. What? A divorce? I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers will be ready next week. I couldn't breathe. Carter, I don't understand. What happened? What did I do wrong? We can work through this, whatever it is. We can go to counseling, There's nothing to work through. He finally turned to face me, and his eyes were empty of everything that had once made me believe he loved me. This marriage was a mistake. A mistake. My voice cracked. Carter, we've been together for 5 years. You said you loved me. You promised. I said what I needed to say to get what I wanted. His words were brutal, efficient, designed to cut. Did you really think someone like me would fall for someone like you? You were a means to an end, Maverick. A very profitable means to an end. Gloria smiled, actually smiled, as tears began streaming down my face. You targeted me? I whispered. This whole time, you were just using me for my money? Not just the money, Carter said with a shrug. The connections helped too. Your family name opened doors. But yes, primarily the money. And now that the business is established, I don't need you anymore. In fact, you've become rather inconvenient. I felt like I was drowning. The business, my inheritance. Carter, that was supposed to be for our future. It is for my future. Just not with you in it. He checked his watch like this conversation was boring him. The divorce will be simple. You'll get nothing, of course. The business is in my name, established with my management. And you gave me that money freely, there's documentation. You have no legal claim. I don't care about the money. I was sobbing now, humiliated but unable to stop. I care about you. I love you. Well, that's unfortunate for you. Carter pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. I need you to sign the divorce papers when they arrive. Don't make this difficult. And if I don't? His eyes went cold. Then I'll make your life very difficult. I have resources now, Maverick. Connections. Power. You're just a trust fund kid who dabbles in charity work. Don't fight me on this. Gloria stood, smoothing her skirt. It's nothing personal, dear. You were simply out of your depth. Carter was always meant for greater things than playing house with you. They left me standing in our living room, the room where we'd laughed together, made love on the couch, planned imaginary futures, destroyed. I didn't sign the papers. I couldn't. Despite everything, some foolish part of me still hoped this was a nightmare, that Carter would come back, apologize, tell me it was all a terrible mistake. Instead, things got worse. Carter moved out, taking most of our belongings. He stopped paying his share of the rent, forcing me to cover it alone. My foundation started losing donors, major contributors mysteriously pulling their support. When I tried to find out why, I discovered Carter had been spreading rumors about financial mismanagement, about my instability. My reputation, carefully built over years of genuine charitable work, crumbled in weeks. I tried to fight the divorce to at least reclaim some portion of my inheritance, but Carter had expensive lawyers and documentation showing I'd given him the money as a gift. My lawyer, a kind older woman named Mrs. Chen, looked at me with sympathy and regret. I'm sorry, Maverick. Without proof of coercion or fraud, there's nothing we can do. You gave him that money voluntarily during your marriage. Legally, it's his. 6 months after Carter asked for the divorce, after I'd been systematically destroyed financially and socially, I came home to find Gloria waiting in my apartment. How did you get in here? I have my ways. She was holding a glass of wine, my wine, looking completely at ease. I came to deliver a message from Carter. He's tired of waiting. He wants this divorce finalized and he wants you to stop causing problems. I have a right to. You have a right to nothing. Her composure cracked, revealing the venom beneath. You were a mark, Maverick. A stupid, naive little fool who fell for the first handsome man who paid you attention. Carter played you perfectly and you made it so easy. Do you want to know the truth? We'd been planning this for months before you ever met. We researched you, learned everything about you, crafted Carter's entire persona to be exactly what would appeal to you. And it worked beautifully. I staggered back, gripping the kitchen counter for support. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know how thoroughly you've been beaten. Carter doesn't just want your money, he wants you to know that he won. That you were never anything more than a pathetic, lovesick fool. She set down the wine glass and walked toward the door, pausing to look back at me. Sign the papers, Maverick. Or things will get much worse for you. That night, sitting alone in the apartment that no longer felt like home, I seriously considered ending it all. I'd lost everything, my money, my reputation, my love, my future. What was left? But I didn't. Instead, I poured myself a drink, pulled out the divorce papers and signed them with shaking hands. If Carter wanted me gone, I'd go. I'd disappear. I'd find some quiet place to rebuild my life, far from the ruins of everything I'd believed in. 2 weeks later, I was packing the last of my belongings, preparing to move to a small apartment across town, when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Carter standing there, and for one foolish moment, my heart leaped. Maybe he'd realized his mistake. Maybe. "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the apartment. I signed the papers. "What more do you want?" Carter closed the door behind him, and something about the gesture made my skin prickle with warning. "There's one more complication we need to address." "What are you talking about?" He pulled out his phone, showing me a document. "This is your grandmother's will. I had some lawyers look into your inheritance more thoroughly. Turns out, there's a clause that if you die without heirs, the remainder of your inheritance, which is still substantial, would go to your mother's sister. Your Aunt Patricia." My blood ran cold. So Aunt Patricia has already indicated she'd contest any claim I might have to that money as your former spouse. Which means I'd get nothing. But if you were to die while we were still legally married. He smiled, and it was the smile of a stranger. "I'd have a much stronger claim. Actually, I'd have the strongest claim." "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious, Maverick." He took a step toward me and I took a step back. "You've served your purpose. You gave me the seed money I needed, and now you're just a loose end. One that could potentially cost me millions down the line. Carter, please. We're not married anymore. The divorce is final. You got what you wanted." "Not quite final. There's a waiting period. And during that waiting period, legally, we're still married." Another step closer. "You've made this so much more complicated than it needed to be. If you'd just disappeared quietly, I might have let you live. But you tried to fight me. You tried to expose me. You made yourself a liability." I ran. I made it to the bedroom before Carter caught me, his hand gripping my arm with bruising force, spinning me around. I fought, screaming, clawing at his face, but he was stronger, trained, ruthless. "I'm sorry," he said, and he almost sounded like he meant it. "If it helps, I did enjoy parts of our time together. You were always so eager to please." He pushed me hard and I fell backward. My head struck the corner of the dresser, and white-hot pain exploded through my skull. I crumpled to the ground, my vision blurring, warm blood pooling beneath my head. Carter stood over me, watching with clinical detachment as I struggled to breathe, to move, to live. "Goodbye, Maverick." The world went dark. Death felt like drowning in endless night. Then suddenly I was gasping for air, my heart racing, my body trembling. I opened my eyes to find myself in a familiar room, sunlight streaming through familiar curtains. My bedroom. But not the bedroom from the apartment where I'd died. This was my old bedroom from years ago. I sat up, disoriented, my hands going to my head. No injury, no blood. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, and when I saw the date, my entire world tilted. 5 years earlier. I was back. Somehow, impossibly, I was back to the day before I'd meet Carter Hayes for the first time at that charity gala. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop, searching for Hayes Import Solutions. It didn't exist. Searching for news about Carter, nothing beyond his basic military records. It hadn't happened yet. None of it had happened yet. I had been given the rarest of gifts, a second chance. A chance to change everything. A chance to protect myself, to prevent the nightmare before it began. And more than that, a chance for revenge. I sat there for a long time, my mind racing with possibilities, with plans. Carter Hayes thought he could use me, destroy me, kill me. He thought he was so clever, so untouchable. He had no idea that his perfect victim now held all the cards. I smiled, cold and determined, as I began to plan. This time, things would be different. I spent the first week after my rebirth in a state of controlled chaos, researching, planning, verifying that this impossible second chance was real. Every morning I woke up terrified it would be a dream, that I'd find myself back in that apartment with Carter standing over me. But each day confirmed the truth. I was 23 again, with all my inheritance intact, my reputation unblemished, and most importantly, foreknowledge of exactly how the next 5 years would play out. Unless I changed them. The charity gala was tomorrow night. In my previous life, that's where I'd met Carter, where the whole nightmare had begun. The easiest solution would be to simply not attend, to avoid him entirely. But as I sat in my home office, reviewing investment portfolios and business opportunities, I realized that wasn't enough. Carter Hayes had targeted me specifically, deliberately, with calculated cruelty. If I simply avoided him, he'd find another victim, someone else whose life he'd destroy without remorse. His mother Gloria was already grooming him for this con, already researching wealthy, naive targets. I couldn't let him do to someone else what he'd done to me. But more than that, I wanted him to know what it felt like. To be used, manipulated, destroyed. I wanted him to experience the same devastation he'd inflicted on me. So I would attend the gala. I would meet Carter Hayes. But this time I'd be the one in control. I called my financial advisor, David Chin, first thing Monday morning. Maverick, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? David, I want to make some significant changes to my investment strategy. Rather aggressive changes. There was a pause. I see. What kind of time frame are we looking at? Immediate. I want to pull funds from the conservative portfolios and reinvest in specific opportunities. I'm sending you a list. The list I'd spent the weekend compiling included every major tech company that would explode over the next 5 years, every startup that would become a household name, every market shift I could remember. Bitcoin was still cheap. Tesla was undervalued. Certain pharmaceutical companies were about to have breakthrough drugs approved. I had a roadmap to wealth that no one else could possibly have, and I intended to use it. Maverick, some of these are quite risky, David said after reviewing my list. Are you sure about this? These aren't the kind of stable, long-term investments your parents set up. I'm sure. I have a good feeling about these companies. I kept my voice confident, casual. Trust me on this, David. It's your money. I'll get the paperwork started. That afternoon, I moved $500,000 into carefully selected investments. Within months, those investments would triple. Within a year, they'd make me wealthier than I'd ever been in my previous life. But money was only part of the plan. The night of the charity gala, I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting my tie. I looked the same as I had before, tall and lean, with dark blonde hair that always fell slightly into my green eyes, a face that people called handsome but that I'd always thought was too soft, too delicate. Carter had once called me beautiful, tracing his fingers along my jaw in the darkness of our bedroom. The memory made my stomach turn. I forced myself to breathe, to focus. Tonight, I would meet my murderer for the first time again. And I would begin my revenge. The ballroom was exactly as I remembered, glittering chandeliers, elaborate floral arrangements, women in evening gowns and men in tuxedos. I moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting champagne from passing waiters, making polite conversation with foundation donors. And then I saw him. Carter Hayes, standing near the bar in his dress uniform, looking exactly as he had the first time. Handsome and confident, with that slight smile that suggested he was in on a joke no one else understood. He was scanning the room and I knew he was looking for his mark. Looking for me. Our eyes met across the crowded ballroom, and I saw the moment of recognition in his face. He'd found his target. I was exactly what he'd researched. Young, wealthy, attending alone, with an expression that probably looked lonely and eager for connection. I looked away first, deliberately, taking a sip of champagne and turning my attention to the elderly couple beside me. In my peripheral vision, I saw Carter begin moving through the crowd in my direction. My heart was pounding, but I kept my expression neutral, pleasant, unsuspecting. You look like you'd rather be anywhere else. His voice. The same opening line. The same calculated approach. I turned, arranging my face into an expression of pleasant surprise. Is it that obvious? He smiled, extending his hand. Carter Hayes, Lieutenant. Currently counting down the minutes until I can escape. I shook his hand, feeling the calluses I remembered, the strength I remembered, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Maverick Elliott. And I've already mapped out 3 different exit strategies. Maybe we could strategize together? This was where I'd fallen before. This moment of connection, of easy laughter and chemistry. This was where Carter's careful research and rehearsed charm had worked perfectly. Not this time. That sounds nice, I said with a warm smile. But I actually need to speak with Mrs. Thornberry before she leaves. Foundation business, you understand. Perhaps another time? I saw the flash of surprise in his eyes. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. I was supposed to be charmed, eager, immediately hooked. Of course, he said smoothly, but I could see him recalibrating. I'll be here for another hour or so if you find yourself free. I'll keep that in mind. I walked away, very aware of his eyes following me. I'd just done something he hadn't expected, shown disinterest. In the psychology of manipulation, that would make me more appealing, more challenging. He'd try harder now. Good. I actually did speak with Mrs. Thornberry, an elderly philanthropist who'd been friends with my mother. But I kept Carter in my peripheral vision, watching him watch me. He didn't approach anyone else, didn't socialize beyond perfunctory conversations. He was focused on me. I made him wait 45 minutes before I wandered back in his direction, timing it to look coincidental. Still here? I said, feigning surprise. Told you I'd wait. That smile again, the one designed to make hearts flutter. Though I was starting to think you were avoiding me. Not avoiding. Just busy. I gestured to the crowded room. These events are unfortunately necessary for the foundation, even if they're not my favorite way to spend an evening. What would be your favorite way? Honestly? Curled up with a good book and a glass of wine. Much less exhausting than making small talk. Carter laughed and it sounded genuine. That was his gift, making everything seem genuine. I can respect that. What kind of books? We talked for 20 minutes, the same conversation I remembered from before, but this time I was aware of every calculated pause, every carefully crafted question designed to make me feel seen and understood. Carter was good at this. I had to give him credit, his research was thorough, his performance flawless. But I was better. When he asked for my number, I hesitated just long enough to seem uncertain. I don't usually give out my personal number at these events. I understand. But I'd really like to continue this conversation sometime. Maybe over that glass of wine and book discussion? I smiled, pulling out my phone. One coffee. We'll see if you're actually as interesting as you seem. Deal. We exchanged numbers and I said goodbye with a friendly wave, nothing more. Casual, non-committal, intrigued but not hooked. As I drove home that night, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I'd done it. I'd met Carter Hayes again, spoken to him again, and this time I'd stayed in control. This time I knew exactly who and what he was. And I was going to destroy him. Carter texted me 2 days later just as he had before. Hey Maverick, still thinking about our book discussion. Any chance you're free for that coffee this week? I made him wait 6 hours before responding. Maybe Saturday? I have a busy week ahead. Saturday works great. Know a place called Cornerstone Cafe? 2 p.m.? The same cafe. The same time. Carter was following his script perfectly. See you there. Over the next few days, I put the other pieces of my plan into motion. I met with business consultants, reviewed property investments, established connections with people who would be crucial in the coming years. I also hired a private investigator, a discreet professional named Marcus Webb who came highly recommended. I need you to investigate someone, I told him in his modest office downtown. Carter Hayes, currently a lieutenant in the military. I want to know everything about him and his mother, Gloria Hayes. Their finances, their associations, any questionable dealings. Everything. Marcus raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? Let's just say I have reason to believe they're not what they appear to be. I want proof. Understood. This will take some time. That's fine. Be thorough. Saturday arrived and I met Carter at Cornerstone Cafe. He was already there, having ordered himself coffee, looking relaxed and approachable in jeans and a casual button-down. He stood when I arrived, that warm smile in place. Maverick, glad you made it. Glad my week finally calmed down enough to have a life. We ordered, I got my usual Earl Grey tea, and settled into a corner booth. The conversation flowed easily just as it had before. Carter asked about my work with the foundation, my interests, my family. I gave him carefully edited answers, nothing too revealing but enough to keep him engaged. So your parents passed away? He said with perfect sympathy. I'm so sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. Still is some days. I looked down at my tea. But they left me with the means to continue their charitable work, so I try to honor their legacy that way. I saw the flash of interest in his eyes at the mention of means. There it was, the moment he'd confirmed I was the right mark. That's admirable, he said. A lot of people in your position would just coast on their inheritance. Money without purpose is just numbers in an account. I'd rather it do some good. We talked for 2 hours and when we parted, Carter asked if he could see me again. I'd like that, I said, offering a shy smile. You're easy to talk to. So are you. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was intimate without being inappropriate. Same time next week? Sure. As I walked to my car, I felt his eyes on me and knew the hook was set. Carter thought he was reeling me in, but in reality I was the one controlling this dance. Over the next 2 months, we fell into a pattern of regular dates, coffee, dinners, walks through the park. Carter was patient, never pushing too hard, building trust and connection with calculated precision. He shared carefully crafted stories about his childhood, his dreams, his frustrations with military life. He listened to me with focused attention, remembered small details, made me feel special. If I hadn't known it was all an act, I might have fallen for it again. But I did know, and every smile, every touch, every tender word was like watching a predator circle its prey. The difference was that this time the prey had teeth. In those 2 months, my investments began paying off. The tech stocks I'd purchased surged. Bitcoin doubled. My portfolio grew exponentially, and David Chin called me with barely contained excitement. Maverick, I don't know how you did it, but these investments are performing beyond anything I could have predicted. You're up almost 200% in 8 weeks. Beginner's luck, I said lightly. This isn't luck. This is genius. If you have any other insights, I'll let you know. I also began quietly establishing business ventures of my own. I purchased a warehouse property that I knew would quintuple in value. I invested in a small tech startup that would become a major player in cybersecurity. I established connections with business leaders and investors, building a network of influence. By the time Carter would eventually ask for my money, I would be far wealthier than he knew. But I'd make sure he never saw the full picture. Meanwhile, Marcus Webb was compiling an extensive dossier on Carter and Gloria Hayes. What he found confirmed everything I'd experienced in my previous life, and worse. I was in my home office reviewing Marcus Webb's preliminary findings when Carter called. 3 months into our dating relationship, and his calls had become daily occurrences, each one filled with warm conversation and carefully deployed affection. "Hey beautiful," he said when I answered, and I suppressed the urge to flinch at the endearment. "How's your day?" "Busy. Foundation work and some personal projects." "All work and no play makes Maverick a dull boy," he teased. "Have dinner with me tonight? I want to see you." 3 months in my previous life, this was around the time Carter had escalated our physical relationship, adding another layer to his manipulation. I'd been so in love, so eager to give him everything. This time I was deliberately keeping him at arm's length. We'd kissed. I couldn't avoid that without raising suspicion, but I'd held back for more, claiming I wanted to take things slow. It was driving him crazy, I could tell. I wasn't following the script. "Dinner sounds nice," I said. 7? "Perfect. I'll pick you up." After we hung up, I returned to Marcus's report, spread across my desk in neat manila folders. The private investigator had been thorough, and what he'd uncovered was damning. Gloria Hayes had a history of small-time cons. Nothing provable enough to prosecute, but a pattern of behavior. She'd married 3 times, each marriage ending in her favor financially. She'd scammed several people out of investments and fake business opportunities. She was careful, always staying just on the right side of legal action, but the evidence of her manipulative nature was clear. Carter's military record was clean, but Marcus had found something interesting. Large deposits into his bank account over the past year, all from his mother. Money Gloria had acquired through her various schemes, money they were clearly saving for something. For me. For the con they'd planned. Marcus had also found evidence of surveillance. Carter and Gloria had been monitoring my social media, my foundation work, even my routine before we'd accidentally met at the gala. They'd orchestrated everything. In my previous life, this information would have devastated me. Now it was ammunition. There was a knock at my office door and my housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, poked her head in. "Mr. Elliott, there's a delivery for you. Should I bring it in?" "Please." She wheeled in a large package and I signed for it with curiosity. When I opened it, I found an expensive briefcase made of Italian leather with a note attached. "Saw this and thought of you. For all those important foundation documents. Carter." I ran my fingers over the smooth leather, recognizing the manipulation for what it was. A gift expensive enough to seem generous but not so expensive that it would raise questions about his finances. A thoughtful gesture designed to make me feel valued, to deepen the emotional hook. In my previous life I'd been touched by such gestures. Now I saw them as the calculated moves they were. I took a photo of the briefcase and sent it to Carter with a heart emoji and a thank you message. If he wanted to play the devoted boyfriend, I'd play the appreciative partner. All while tightening the noose around his neck. Dinner that night was at an upscale Italian restaurant. Carter was in rare form, charming, attentive, making me laugh with stories from his day. He'd perfected the art of making every date feel special, every moment feel meaningful. Over dessert, he reached across the table and took my hand. "Maverick, these past few months with you have been incredible. I know we haven't known each other that long, but I've never felt this way about anyone before." Here it comes, I thought. The escalation. "I feel the same way," I said, because that's what he needed to hear. "I want to take our relationship to the next level. I want to make this official, exclusive. I want you to be my boyfriend." I squeezed his hand, offering a smile that I knew looked shy and pleased. "I'd like that too." The satisfaction in his eyes was palpable. Everything was going according to his plan, or so he thought. That night, Carter drove me home and walked me to my door. He pulled me close, his hands on my waist, and kissed me deeply. I responded appropriately, playing the part of the man falling in love, even as my mind remained cold and calculating. "Can I come in?" he murmured against my lips. "Not tonight," I said, pulling back slightly. I want our first time to be special. Not rushed." I saw the flash of frustration before he masked it with understanding. "Of course. I want that too. Whenever you're ready." "Soon," I promised. After he left, I stood in my quiet living room and allowed myself a moment of genuine emotion. Not love, but satisfaction. Carter Hayes thought he was playing me perfectly, thought he was in control. He had no idea that every move he made was exactly what I'd anticipated, exactly what I'd planned for. My phone buzzed with a text from David Chin. "Maverick, you need to see these latest returns. Call me tomorrow." I smiled. My wealth was growing exponentially, far beyond what Carter could imagine. Soon I'd be ready for the next phase of my plan. Over the next few months, I allowed our relationship to progress in carefully measured steps. I introduced Carter to my social circle, to the influential people in my network, all while making sure he never quite understood the full extent of my wealth or connections. To him, I was still the naive trust fund kid, living on inherited money focused on charitable work. He had no idea I was quietly building a business empire. By our 6-month anniversary, my investments had grown my initial wealth by over 400%. I'd established LLCs for various business ventures, purchased properties, made strategic partnerships. I was wealthy before, now I was becoming truly powerful. And Carter still thought he was the one with the plan. Marcus Webb continued his investigation, compiling more evidence of Gloria's schemes and Carter's complicity. I had documentation of every manipulation, every calculated move they'd made. I also began setting up the infrastructure for Carter's eventual downfall. I established relationships with law enforcement contacts, with business regulators, with attorneys who specialized in fraud. I was building a cage, piece by piece, that Carter would walk into willingly. The night Carter proposed was carefully orchestrated, by both of us. We went to the same beach where he'd proposed in my previous life at the same time of day, with the same sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring box, and spoke the same words he'd spoken before. "Maverick, I know I don't have much to offer. I'm just a low-ranking officer with a modest salary and uncertain prospects. But I love you more than I've ever loved anything in my life. Will you marry me?" I looked at him, this man who'd murdered me, who'd used me and discarded me, who'd made me believe in a love that never existed. In my previous life, I'd said yes immediately, tears of joy streaming down my face. This time, I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. "Yes," I finally said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The relief on his face was telling. He'd worried for just a moment that his mark might slip away. He slipped the ring on my finger, a modest diamond probably purchased with Gloria's money, and kissed me as the sun set behind us. "I'm going to make you so happy," he whispered. "I believe you," I lied. That night, we made love for the first time in my bedroom, with Carter's hands on my skin and his lips speaking words of love and devotion. I responded with appropriate passion, playing my role perfectly. But inside I felt nothing but cold purpose. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about justice. As Carter slept beside me, his arm draped across my waist in false intimacy, I stared at the ceiling and thought about everything that was coming. The wedding. The manipulation. The betrayal. Only this time I'd be the one doing the betraying. Carter Hayes wanted to use me for my money? I'd give him money. And then I'd watch his world burn. We married 3 months later in a small ceremony, just as we had before. Gloria was there, looking at me with those calculating eyes, probably already spending my inheritance in her mind. Carter's few friends attended, along with some of my own acquaintances. No one knew that the groom had already spent months planning how to steal everything from me. And no one knew that I'd spent months planning my revenge. As we said our vows, promising to love and honor each other through thick and thin, I met Carter's eyes and saw my own reflection in them. A trusting, naive young man who believed in love. It was an excellent performance. That night, in our marriage bed, Carter held me close and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me. For believing in us." "Always," I whispered back. The game had truly begun. And this time I was going to win. 2 years into our marriage, everything was proceeding exactly as I remembered, except for the parts Carter couldn't see. To him, our life appeared identical to my previous timeline. We lived in the same modest apartment. I continued my foundation work. He remained in the military, though he'd begun making noises about wanting to pursue business opportunities. What Carter didn't know was that behind the scenes, I'd become extraordinarily wealthy. My investments had grown exponentially. I owned properties across the city, held significant shares in multiple successful companies, and had established myself as a silent partner in various lucrative ventures. I'd also been carefully documenting every aspect of Carter and Gloria's behavior, building an ironclad case against them. The evening Carter came home with his business proposal, played out like a script I'd memorized. He sat me down at our kitchen table, took my hands in his, and gave me that earnest look that had once made my heart melt. Mav, I've been thinking a lot about our future. I let him give his whole speech, the one about leaving the military, starting an import-export business, needing capital to get started. I watched him perform concern and ambition and love, all carefully calibrated to manipulate me into giving him what he wanted. When he finished, I was quiet for a long moment, as if seriously considering his proposal. How much would you need? 300,000 to start. He squeezed my hands. I know it's a lot, but I swear to you, once the business is profitable, I'll pay you back every cent. And then I'll spend the rest of my life spoiling you. The same promises, the same lies. Let me think about it, I said, pulling my hands away gently. That's a significant amount of money, Carter. I need to consider it carefully. I saw the flash of annoyance before he masked it. Of course. Take all the time you need. But the pressure began immediately. Gloria started calling, dropping by unannounced, making pointed comments about supportive spouses and shared dreams. Carter became more distant, his affection cooling whenever I didn't immediately agree to his demands. I let it play out for 3 months, watching them ramp up their manipulation, documenting every guilt trip, every calculated comment, every moment of pressure. Finally, I called David Chin. I need to withdraw $300,000 from my original inheritance accounts, I said. Are you sure? That's a significant chunk of your base inheritance. I'm sure. My husband has a business opportunity. What David didn't know, what no one knew except my most trusted advisors, was that my base inheritance was now just a small fraction of my actual wealth. I had millions in other accounts, in properties, in investments, all carefully hidden from Carter's awareness. I could give him the $300,000 and never miss it. But that wasn't the point. The point was to give him exactly what he wanted, just enough rope to hang himself. The day I handed Carter the check, his face lit up with genuine joy, not because he loved me but because his con was succeeding. Thank you, baby. Thank you so much. I'm going to make you so proud. He kissed me deeply and I returned the kiss, knowing it would be one of the last truly affectionate moments between us. I believe in you, I said, and watching him accept my lie while telling his own had a certain poetic symmetry. Carter quit the military and launched Hayes Import Solutions, following the exact same trajectory as before. He rented office space, hired employees, started making deals. But this time I was involved in ways he never suspected. Through my network of business connections and using anonymous shell companies, I began systematically sabotaging Carter's business. Not enough to make it fail immediately, that would be too obvious. But enough to ensure that every success was hard-won, every profit margin slimmer than expected, every expansion fraught with unexpected complications. A shipment would be delayed by customs issues I'd quietly arranged. A lucrative contract would fall through at the last minute thanks to a word in the right ear. Regulatory inspections would happen at the most inconvenient times. Carter worked twice as hard for half the results, never knowing that the obstacles in his path were my design. Meanwhile, I cultivated a relationship with a detective named Sarah Martinez, who worked in the Financial Crimes Division. I'd met her through my foundation work, and we'd become friendly over several charity events. Sarah, hypothetically speaking, if someone were to suspect fraud in a business venture, what kind of evidence would be needed to build a case? She studied me over her coffee cup. This isn't hypothetical, is it? Not exactly. What do you suspect? That my husband's business might not be entirely legitimate. That there might be illegal activities hidden beneath the legal operations. Do you have proof? Not yet. But I'm working on it. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Be careful, Maverick. If you're right about this, you could be in danger. I know. But I need to see this through. She handed me her card. When you have proof, call me. I'll help however I can. The plan crystallized over the following months. I would give Carter enough success to make him confident, greedy, and careless. Then I would introduce opportunities for illegal activity, opportunities that would seem too good to pass up. Through intermediaries, I connected Carter with business partners, who were actually undercover operatives working with Sarah. These partners suggested that Hayes Import Solutions could dramatically increase profits by smuggling certain goods through customs, by cutting corners on import regulations, by engaging in activities that were highly illegal but seemingly low risk. At first, Carter was hesitant. But as his legitimate business continued to face my carefully orchestrated obstacles, and as Gloria pushed him to increase profits by any means necessary, his resistance weakened. I watched through surveillance and informants as Carter made the decision to cross the line from legitimate businessman to criminal. The first illegal shipment. The first bribe to a customs official. The first deliberately fraudulent documentation. Each crime was documented, recorded, added to the growing case against him. The business began to thrive with the illegal activities boosting profits. Carter bought himself that expensive Mercedes. He moved Gloria into a luxury condo. He started wearing designer suits and expensive watches. And he paid me back not a single dollar. When I asked about it, gently at first, he brushed me off with the same excuses as before. The money's reinvested, babe. We're in a growth phase. Once things stabilize. The affection between us had completely evaporated. He barely touched me anymore, was rarely home, and when he was distant and preoccupied. I played the role of the disappointed, neglected spouse perfectly, even as I tightened the legal noose around his neck. The final phase of my plan required precise timing. I needed Carter to feel completely secure, completely untouchable. I needed him to have enough illegal activity on record to guarantee significant prison time. And I needed to ensure that when everything came crashing down, he'd lose not just his freedom, but everything he'd stolen from me. 2.5 years after giving him my inheritance, I made the call to Sarah Martinez. I have everything you need, I said. Documentation of smuggling, bribery, fraud, tax evasion. All of it. Are you sure you want to do this? I've never been more sure of anything. Once we move on this, there's no going back. Your husband will go to prison for a very long time. Good. The raid on Hayes Import Solutions happened on a Tuesday morning. I made sure I was at the office, having told Carter I wanted to be more involved in our business. I wanted to see his face when everything fell apart. Federal agents swept in like a tide, seizing computers, files, inventory. Carter's face went pale as they read him his rights, as they handcuffed him, as his entire world collapsed in real time. His eyes found mine across the chaos. Maverick, what? I don't understand. I think you understand perfectly, I said calmly. Your business is built on illegal activities, Carter. Smuggling, fraud, bribery. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? But, you were part of this. You gave me the money. I gave you money to start a legitimate business. What you did with it was your choice. The agent holding him pulled him toward the door, but Carter fought against it, his eyes wide with something close to panic. Maverick, please. You have to help me. I'm your husband. You stopped being my husband the moment you decided to betray me, I said quietly. And yes, I know about all of it. The con. The planning. Your mother's schemes. I know everything, Carter. I've always known. His face went from pale to white. What are you talking about? Did you really think I was that naive? That trusting? I knew what you were the moment I met you. And I gave you exactly what you deserved. The realization dawned in his eyes, horror, understanding, and something that might have been respect if it wasn't mixed with so much fear. You planned this. All of it. All of it, I confirmed. Goodbye, Carter. Enjoy prison. As they led him away, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Gloria was arrested the following day as an accomplice. The evidence against them both was overwhelming, not just the recent illegal activities but patterns of fraud and manipulation going back years, all meticulously documented by Marcus Webb and his team. The trial was swift. Carter tried to implicate me, claiming I'd been involved in the illegal activities, but the evidence told a different story. I was a victim, a trusting spouse who'd been manipulated and used. The $300,000 I'd given him had been for legitimate business purposes. What he'd chosen to do afterward was entirely his responsibility. The jury found him guilty on multiple counts: fraud, smuggling, bribery, tax evasion, and more. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. Gloria received 10 years for her role as an accomplice and for her own history of fraud. Standing in that courtroom, watching Carter's face as the sentence was read, I felt the weight of my previous life finally lift from my shoulders. The man who'd killed me, who'd used me and destroyed me, was getting the justice he deserved. As they led him away, Carter looked back at me one last time. Our eyes met, and in that moment I saw everything. His hatred, his disbelief, his grudging acknowledgement that I'd outplayed him completely. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply watched him go, knowing that this chapter of my life was finally, truly over. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. I reclaimed my maiden name, just Maverick Elliott, no longer bound to the Hayes family in any way. The $300,000 that Carter had stolen was recovered as part of the criminal proceedings and returned to me, along with the assets from Hayes Import Solutions. Not that I needed any of it. My legitimate investments and business ventures had made me wealthier than I'd ever imagined. I was worth over $50 million now with a business empire that spanned real estate, technology, finance, and more. But the money didn't matter as much as the freedom. I stood in my new penthouse apartment, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and felt like I could finally breathe. The nightmare was over. Carter was behind bars where he belonged. Gloria was imprisoned. And I was free to live my life on my own terms. I'd avenged myself and prevented them from hurting anyone else. I'd turned my pain into power, my victimhood into victory. But as I looked out over the glittering cityscape, I felt hollow. Revenge had been satisfying, but it hadn't healed the deeper wound, the loneliness, the difficulty trusting, the walls I'd built around my heart. I'd won. But I'd also closed myself off from the possibility of ever truly loving or being loved again. Or so I thought. 3 years passed. I threw myself into expanding my business empire, into my foundation work, into building a life that was successful and meaningful but ultimately solitary. I dated occasionally, casual encounters that never went anywhere because I couldn't let anyone close enough to hurt me again. My therapist, Dr. Ramirez, called it understandable but ultimately self-defeating. Maverick, what Carter did to you was horrific. But you can't let him take your ability to love and trust. That's letting him win in a different way. I'm fine, I insisted. I'm happy. I have my work, my friends, my success. But you're alone. And you're lonely. There's a difference between being fine and actually being happy. Maybe she was right. But I didn't know how to open myself up again, didn't know how to trust that someone's affection was genuine and not just another con. Then I met Hudson Vale. It happened at a business conference in Manhattan. I was there to give a keynote speech about ethical investment and philanthropy. My foundation had grown significantly, and I'd become something of a respected voice in the industry. After my presentation during the networking reception, a man approached me. Maverick Elliott? That was an impressive talk. I turned to find myself looking at possibly the most handsome man I'd ever seen. He was tall, taller than me by a few inches, with dark hair touched with silver at the temples, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that were an unusual shade of amber. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit and carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from genuine achievement rather than arrogance. "Thank you," I said, shaking his extended hand. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met." Hudson Vale. I run Vale Industries. We're in sustainable technology. I've actually been following your foundation's work for a while. Your approach to impact investing is fascinating. We talked for 20 minutes and I found myself genuinely engaged in the conversation. Hudson was intelligent, well-informed, and passionate about using business as a force for good. He challenged my ideas without being confrontational, shared his own innovative approaches to corporate philanthropy, and somehow made me laugh more than I had in months. "I'd love to continue this discussion," Hudson said as the reception was winding down. "Would you be interested in having dinner tomorrow? I know an excellent restaurant, and I think there might be opportunities for our organizations to collaborate." Every instinct I'd developed since Carter screamed at me to decline, to keep this professional and distant. But something about Hudson made me want to take the risk. "Dinner sounds nice," I heard myself say. His smile was warm and genuine. "Excellent. I'll pick you up at 7? That dinner led to another and then another. Hudson and I began meeting regularly when we were both in the city, ostensibly to discuss business collaborations, but increasingly just to enjoy each other's company. He was different from Carter in every way. Where Carter had been calculated and performing, Hudson was genuine and straightforward. He didn't ask invasive questions about my wealth or my family. He didn't try to move too fast or push for more than I was comfortable giving. He treated me as an equal, valuing my opinions and challenging me intellectually. And slowly, carefully, I felt the walls around my heart beginning to crack. 3 months into our friendship, we were having dinner at Hudson's apartment. He'd insisted on cooking, saying he rarely got to show off his culinary skills, when he said something that made me freeze. "I need to be honest with you about something." My blood ran cold. Here it comes, I thought. The manipulation. The con. The revelation that this was all too good to be true. I know about Carter Hayes. I set down my wine glass carefully, my heart pounding. What about him? I know he's your ex-husband. I know he went to prison for fraud. I know he tried to steal your inheritance. Hudson's expression was serious but kind. I wanted you to know that I know because I don't want there to be secrets between us. And I want you to know that I'm not him. I'm not after your money or trying to use you. I'm interested in you, Maverick. Just you. Tears stung my eyes unexpectedly. How did you find out? Google mostly. Your divorce and his conviction were public record. I looked you up after we met because I wanted to know more about you. He reached across the table, taking my hand. I'm sorry that happened to you. But I'm glad you're here now. I should have pulled away. Should have put the walls back up. But instead I found myself squeezing his hand back. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. Scared to trust anyone. Scared to let someone in. I understand. And I'm patient. We'll move at whatever pace you need. He smiled softly. But Maverick, I'm falling for you. I wanted you to know that too. Something in my chest cracked open, and for the first time in years, I let myself feel hope. Hudson and I took things slowly. He never pushed, never demanded more than I was ready to give. We talked for hours about everything, our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. He introduced me to his friends and colleagues, all of whom were genuine, kind people. He met my friends, charming them effortlessly while respecting the protective boundaries they'd established around me. 6 months into our relationship, I finally told him everything. Not just about Carter, but about my rebirth, my second chance, my systematic revenge. I told him the whole impossible, unbelievable story, expecting him to think I was crazy. Instead, Hudson listened quietly, his hand holding mine, his expression thoughtful. That's quite a story, he said when I finished. You don't believe me? I didn't say that. He brushed his thumb across my knuckles. Maverick, I've seen enough strange things in life to know that the universe is more complex than we understand. Whether you somehow came back or whether you had some kind of premonition that saved you, either way I'm grateful. Because it brought you to this point. It brought you to me. I kissed him then, deeply and desperately, pouring years of loneliness and fear and hope into that kiss. He responded with gentle intensity, his hands cradling my face like I was something precious. That night we made love for the first time. It was nothing like my experiences with Carter. Hudson was attentive and tender, checking in with me constantly, making sure I was comfortable and present. He explored my body like it was a gift, touching me with reverence and passion. When he entered me, I gasped, not just from the physical sensation but from the emotional intensity of finally letting someone in. I've got you, Hudson whispered against my lips. I've got you, baby. We moved together, building slowly toward climax, our bodies learning each other's rhythms. When I came, it was with Hudson's name on my lips and tears streaming down my face, release of a different kind, years of tension and fear finally breaking. Hudson held me afterward, stroking my hair, pressing soft kisses to my temple. I love you, he murmured. I love you, Maverick. I love you too, I whispered back, meaning it with everything I had. The next 2 years with Hudson were a revelation. We built a life together, not rushed or pressured but organically. He moved into my penthouse and we made it ours, filling it with art and laughter and love. We collaborated on business ventures, combining our resources to create innovative philanthropic projects. We traveled together, explored new places, made memories that didn't have the shadow of Carter hanging over them. Hudson proposed on a quiet beach at sunset, not the same beach where Carter had proposed, but a new one, creating new associations. He got down on one knee and offered me a simple platinum band. Maverick Elliott, you are the strongest, most remarkable person I've ever known. You've been through hell and came out the other side even more compassionate and brilliant. I don't have a manipulative speech or calculated words. I just have the truth. I love you, I respect you, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you what real love looks like. Will you marry me? I said yes through tears of joy. Our wedding was everything my first one wasn't. Genuine, joyful, surrounded by people who truly cared about us. Dr. Ramirez officiated, declaring it the most satisfying therapeutic outcome she'd ever witnessed. Marcus Webb attended, looking pleased that his work had helped bring me here. Sarah Martinez was there too, raising a toast to justice and second chances. As Hudson and I danced at our reception, his arms strong around me, I caught sight of myself in a mirror. I looked happy. Truly, genuinely happy in a way I'd never been before. What are you thinking about? Hudson asked, following my gaze. That I almost let Carter take this from me? The possibility of this. But you didn't? You're here. We're here. He kissed me softly. And I'm going to spend every day making sure you never regret giving love another chance. I could never regret you. That night in our honeymoon suite, Hudson made love to me with passionate intensity. He stripped me slowly, kissing every inch of exposed skin, whispering words of adoration and desire. When we came together, it was explosive and tender all at once, our bodies and hearts completely in sync. Mine, Hudson groaned as he thrust into me, his hands gripping my hips. You're mine, Maverick. Always. Always, I gasped, arching into him, taking him deeper. Yours, Hudson. Only yours. We climaxed together, crying out in unison, collapsing into each other's arms in breathless satisfaction. 5 years after my rebirth, I stood in the nursery Hudson and I had just finished decorating. We were adopting a beautiful baby girl who would be coming home in 2 weeks. The room was painted soft yellow, filled with toys and books and all the love we had to give. Hudson came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. Second thoughts, he teased gently. Never. I'm just grateful. For all of it. Even the pain, because it led me here. You led yourself here. You fought for this life, earned this happiness. I turned in his arms, looking up at the man I loved. We earned it. Together. He kissed me slow and deep, a promise of all the years ahead. Together, he agreed. And as I stood there in the home we'd built, planning for the family we'd create, I understood something fundamental. Revenge had freed me, but love had healed me. Carter had tried to take everything from me, but in the end, he'd given me the greatest gift, the knowledge of how precious real love was, and the determination to fight for it. I'd died alone and betrayed. I'd been reborn with knowledge and purpose. And now I was truly alive, surrounded by genuine love, with a future bright with possibility. This was my second chance and I'd made the most of it. This was my happy ending. 10 years after my rebirth, I received a letter from the federal prison where Carter was serving his sentence. For a moment, holding it in my hands, I considered throwing it away unopened. But curiosity won. Maverick, I know I have no right to contact you. No right to ask for your time or attention. But I'm writing anyway because I need you to hear this from me. You were right. About everything. I used you. I betrayed you. I would have killed you. In my original plan, the one you somehow knew about, I was supposed to kill you after the divorce, making it look like an accident. I was going to inherit whatever remained of your estate, and my mother and I would disappear to start over somewhere else. I don't know how you knew. I don't understand how you turned it all around on me. But I've had 10 years in here to think about it, and I've realized something. You gave me exactly what I deserved. Prison has given me a lot of time for reflection. I've come to understand the magnitude of what I did, who I hurt, the life I destroyed, or tried to destroy. My mother refuses to acknowledge any wrongdoing, but I can't maintain that delusion anymore. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for anything at all. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. And that somewhere in all the lies and manipulation, there were moments when I forgot I was pretending. Moments when being with you was actually pleasant. Real almost. Not that it matters. I destroyed any chance of anything real between us long before we even met. I heard you got married. To Hudson Vale. I hope he treats you the way I should have. The way you deserve. I hope you're happy, Maverick. Genuinely happy. I'm sorry. For whatever that's worth. Carter. I read the letter 3 times, feeling strangely detached from it. This man who had once been the center of my universe, first as my love, then as my target for revenge, was now just someone from my past. Someone whose apology meant little because I'd already healed from the wounds he'd inflicted. Hudson found me standing by the window, letter in hand. Everything okay? I handed him the letter. He read it quickly, his expression darkening. Do you want to respond? I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. No. There's nothing to say. That part of my life is over. Are you sure? I turned to face him, this man who'd shown me what true love looked like. Behind him, I could hear our daughter Emma playing in her room, laughing at something. Our life was full of love and light and genuine happiness. I'm sure. Carter's apology doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo what he did, and it doesn't affect who I am now. I've moved on. I'm happy. That's the best revenge I could have ever gotten. Not his suffering, but my joy. Hudson pulled me into his arms, kissing my forehead. I love you. I love you too. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't think about it again. Because Carter Hayes was my past and Hudson Vale was my future. And my future was beautiful. The letter from Carter went into the drawer and with it, the last ghost of my past. I felt Hudson's arms tighten around me, grounding me in the present, in the reality of this life we'd built together. Emma's finally asleep, Hudson murmured against my hair. Took 3 bedtime stories and a promise of pancakes tomorrow, but she's out. I smiled, turning in his embrace to face him. You spoil her. I spoil both of you. His amber eyes were warm, reflecting the soft lamplight of our bedroom. It's my favorite thing to do. He cupped my face in his hands, those strong, capable hands that had held me through nightmares, through breakthroughs, through every moment of healing over the past years. His thumb traced my cheekbone with infinite tenderness. Are you really okay? He asked quietly. That letter. I know it brought up old wounds. I placed my hand over his, pressing it more firmly against my face. I'm okay. More than okay. Because when I read his words I felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no satisfaction. Just nothing. He's a stranger to me now, Hudson. The only thing I felt was grateful. Grateful? That I'm here. With you. That I get to love you and be loved by you. I turned my head, pressing a kiss to his palm. That I didn't let what he did to me destroy my ability to feel this. Something shifted in Hudson's expression. That particular intensity that still made my breath catch even after all these years together. This, I whispered, rising on my toes to brush my lips against his. This overwhelming, all-consuming love I have for you. Hudson made a low sound in the back of his throat, his hands sliding down to grip my waist, pulling me flush against him. Say it again. I love you, I murmured against his mouth. I love you, Hudson Vale. I love you more than I ever thought possible to love anyone. He kissed me then, deep and slow and thorough, tasting me like I was something rare and precious. His tongue swept into my mouth, claiming me, reminding me that I was his just as much as he was mine. I melted into him, my hands sliding up his chest to loop around his neck. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Hudson rested his forehead against mine. I want to make love to you, he said, his voice rough with desire. I want to remind you of every single way you're cherished. Every single way you're mine. Heat flooded through me, pooling low in my belly. Yes. Please, yes. Hudson smiled, that slow, devastating smile that never failed to make my knees weak, and took my hand. He led me to our bed, the bed we'd chosen together, the bed where we'd shared countless nights of passion and comfort and whispered secrets in the dark. He turned to face me, his hands going to the buttons of my shirt with deliberate slowness. I'm going to take my time with you tonight. Hudson. Sure. He leaned in, kissing the corner of my mouth. Let me worship you the way you deserve. He unbuttoned my shirt with maddening patience, kissing each new inch of skin he revealed. His lips traced my collarbone, the hollow of my throat, the center of my chest. By the time he pushed the shirt off my shoulders, I was trembling. So beautiful, he murmured, his hands spanning my waist, thumbs stroking the sensitive skin just above my belt. Do you know how long I've wanted you? How many times I thought about this before I ever worked up the courage to ask you to dinner that first time? Tell me, I breathed, my head falling back as his mouth found my pulse point. From the moment I saw you on that stage giving your keynote. His teeth grazed my neck, making me gasp. You were so passionate, so brilliant, so fucking beautiful I could barely breathe. I knew I had to know you. Had to have you in my life somehow. His words sent shivers through me. Even after all this time, Hudson still made me feel desired, cherished, seen. He unbuckled my belt, his knuckles brushing against my hardening length through my pants, making me whimper. And when I finally got you here, in our bed, in my arms, Maverick, I've never felt anything like it. Every time with you feels like the first time. Like coming home. He pushed my pants and underwear down in one smooth motion, helping me step out of them before guiding me to sit on the edge of the bed. He knelt before me, his hands running up my thighs, spreading them apart. Hudson, I gasped, knowing what he intended. Let me taste you, he said, looking up at me with those amber eyes dark with desire. Please, baby. Let me show you how much I love you. I could only nod beyond words as he leaned forward and took me into his mouth. The sensation was overwhelming, hot and wet and perfect. Hudson knew exactly how I liked it, knew exactly how to reduce me to a trembling, desperate mess with his tongue and lips. He took me deep, hollowing his cheeks, one hand wrapping around the base while the other gripped my hip, holding me steady. I threaded my fingers through his hair, not pulling, just needing to touch him, to ground myself as pleasure spiraled through me. God, Hudson, your mouth. He hummed around me, the vibration sending shockwaves up my spine. His tongue swirled around the head, lapping at the sensitive underside before taking me deep again. He worked me with practiced skill, building the pleasure higher and higher until I was on the edge, trembling and desperate. Hudson, I'm going to. He pulled off with a wet sound, pressing a kiss to my inner thigh. Not yet. I want to be inside you when you come. I whimpered at the loss, but watched with heavy-lidded eyes as Hudson stood and stripped off his own clothes. Even after all this time, the sight of his body made my mouth water. Broad shoulders, defined chest, the trail of dark hair leading down to his thick, hard cock already leaking with arousal. He was beautiful. And he was mine. Hudson retrieved the lubricant from our nightstand, coating his fingers as he knelt on the bed. Lie back, baby. Let me take care of you. I did as he asked, lying back against the pillows, spreading my legs for him. The vulnerability of the position might have scared me once, but with Hudson I felt nothing but safe. Nothing but loved. He started with one finger, pressing inside me slowly, carefully, watching my face for any sign of discomfort. There was none, only pleasure as he found that spot inside me that made stars explode behind my eyelids. That's it, he murmured, adding a second finger, stretching me gently. So perfect for me. Taking my fingers so well. I rocked down onto his hand, craving more, needing to be filled by him. Hudson, please. I need you. Need all of you. I know, baby. I know. He added a third finger, scissoring them, making sure I was thoroughly prepared. His other hand stroked my thigh, my hip, my chest. Constant contact, constant reassurance that he was there, that I was safe, that I was loved. When he finally withdrew his fingers, I felt achingly empty. But then he was positioning himself between my legs, the head of his cock pressing against my entrance, and anticipation made my breath catch. Look at me, Hudson commanded softly. I want to see your eyes. I met his gaze as he pushed inside, slow and steady, giving me time to adjust to the stretch and burn. His expression was intense, focused entirely on me, on my pleasure, on the connection between us. You feel incredible, he groaned once he was fully seated inside me. Perfect. Like you were made for me. I gasped, my hands gripping his shoulders. I was made for you, Hudson. Only you. He started to move, long, slow strokes that dragged against that perfect spot inside me with each thrust. He hooked my legs over his shoulders, changing the angle, going deeper, and I cried out at the intensity of it. That's it, baby. Let me hear you. Let me hear how good I make you feel. He set a steady rhythm, powerful and deep, each thrust punctuated with whispered words of love and devotion. His hands were everywhere, stroking my chest, tweaking my nipples, gripping my hips hard enough to leave marks I'd cherish tomorrow. I love you, he growled, his pace increasing. I love you so fucking much, Maverick. You're everything to me. Everything. Hudson, I was close, so close, pleasure building at the base of my spine like a coiled spring ready to snap. Hudson, I need. He understood, his hand wrapping around my neglected cock, stroking in time with his thrusts. The dual sensations were too much, pleasure overwhelming every sense, every thought. Come for me, baby, Hudson urged, his own voice strained with the effort of holding back. Come for me. Show me how good I make you feel. His thumb swept over the head of my cock and I shattered. My orgasm ripped through me like lightning, my body arching off the bed, Hudson's name torn from my lips in a desperate cry. I came hard, painting streaks across my chest and stomach, my body clenching rhythmically around Hudson's cock. Fuck, Maverick. Hudson thrust twice more deep and hard before he followed me over the edge. I felt him pulse inside me, filling me with his release, his face a mask of ecstasy as he groaned my name. He collapsed beside me, both of us panting, sweat slicked and thoroughly satisfied. For a long moment we just breathed together, coming down from the high. Then Hudson rolled to face me, his hand cupping my cheek with infinite tenderness. I love you, he whispered. More than words can express. I turned my head, kissing his palm, feeling tears prick at my eyes, not from sadness but from overwhelming gratitude. I love you too. Thank you. For what? For showing me what love really is. For being patient with me. For choosing me every single day. Hudson pulled me into his arms, tucking my head under his chin. Thank you for letting me. For trusting me with your heart after everything you'd been through. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. We lay there in comfortable silence for a while before Hudson reluctantly pulled away. Let me clean you up. He returned with a warm washcloth, gently cleaning the evidence of our lovemaking from my skin with careful, loving attention. Once we were both clean, he climbed back into bed, pulling me into his arms. I nestled against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, feeling completely at peace. Do you ever think about it? I asked quietly. About how different things might have been. If I hadn't gotten that second chance? Hudson was quiet for a moment, his hand stroking slowly up and down my spine. Sometimes. But then I remember that we found each other in this timeline, this reality. And I have to believe that somehow, someway we would have found each other anyway. Because some things are meant to be. You really believe that? I believe in us, he said simply. I believe in this. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. And I believe that every choice you made, every difficult decision, every act of courage, brought you to me. Brought us to this perfect moment. I tilted my head up, kissing him softly. I wouldn't change a thing. Neither would I. As I drifted off to sleep in Hudson's arms, safe and loved and cherished, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the death, and the impossible second chance. The revenge that had freed me and the love that had healed me. Carter had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd inadvertently set me on a path to finding my true purpose, my true strength and my true love. And that, I thought as sleep claimed me, was the best revenge of all, not his suffering but my joy. Not his loss but my gain. I had died alone and unloved. I had been reborn with purpose and determination. And I was living every day surrounded by genuine, overwhelming, beautiful love. This was my second chance. This was my happy ending. This was my life, and it was perfect,